When we're young, we have an amazing, positive outlook about how great life is going to be, but somewhere along the line, we forget to dream and end up settling. Join Up Dots features amazing people who refuse to give up and chose to go after their dreams. This is your blueprint for greatness. So here's your host, live from the back of his garden in the UK, David Ralph.
Yes, hello there. Good morning, my listeners, and welcome to another edition of Join Up Dots. Yes, it's the motivational, conversational show that literally can go in any direction, and we come out at the other end, joining up the dots of the episode. And today's guest is once again in America. We seem to go to America a lot, and it's where the sexy people hang out. And he is a man who is not only in the same game as me, but he has his fingers on the pulse of what is hot, what is good, and what in podcasting should be left as an idea and not actually brought out to the world's ears. He's the head of content at Spreaker, is former EVP CTO at podcast1.com, and former content and business manager for Podcasts TV at Microsoft's Xbox Live and Zune. Now, he currently hosts the Spreaker Live show Wednesdays at 3 p.m. and also co-hosts the New Media show on Saturdays at 9 a.m, which is, of course, very impressive. But even more so, especially to someone like me, is the fact that he's a veteran in the field, and we mean veteran time. Starting his WebTalk World Radio Show in 1999, recognised as the first nationally syndicated radio program in the world to begin podcasting on September the 15th, 2004. And he's been working in podcasting field since. Now, this is pre-Google, pre-iTunes, and pre-the world that we now take for granted. He's a lover of the format of podcasting, he is a master at its game, and he's focused on raising the standards of content creators across the world. And if that isn't something to make you lick your lips and salivate, well, what about this? He's also a Guinness World Record holder for creating the world's largest glass of Florida orange juice. So what was it that really excited him about stepping behind the microphone and getting his words out to the world that perhaps was not ready to consume content in such a way? And is podcasting something that he sees as a great business model or just a passing fad, waiting to join the Rubik Cube, Cabbage Patch Dolls and the Pet Pebbles in the Craze Hall of Fame? Well, let's find out as we bring onto the show to start joining up dots with the one and only Rob Greenlee. Good morning, Rob. How are you, sir?
I'm doing fantastic, David. It's great to be here on your program.
It is lovely to have the world record holder for the world's largest glass of Florida orange juice. I've got to start with that, Rob. We've got to get it out of the way. Why?
Why did I build the world's largest glass of orange juice? It's because I was working for the Florida Department of Citrus as an employee, and my job was to do marketing and promotions for the Florida citrus industry. And so I thought this great idea. We were promoting people drinking more orange juice because it was healthier, and so I just decided I'd take part of my budget and actually build the world's largest glass of orange juice and use it as a sampling tool. So I would travel around the country going to trade shows and events and sampled Tropicana Florida orange juice out of the glass, about 730 gallons worth. So, and set a Guinness Book World Records. The whole glass was about 10 feet tall.
And is it still there? Can I flick through that now and still find you in there?
You can you can go to Google and do a search for world's largest glass of orange juice. You can see a picture of it. Yeah. Yeah,
I've done that. But is it still in the book, Rob? Because these things change.
Oh, I have no idea if they still have it listed in the book or not. The book has probably more records in it than they can put in one book. So it's probably part of their overall records. But as far as the actual book itself that's sold in the stores, it's probably not listed in there, no.
When I was a kid, I used to read the Guinness record books. Always used to get it at Christmas, and it was fascinating. It was all things that couldn't possibly be beaten. It's endeavour. Now I look at it, it's a bit rubbish. People seem to be able to get into it for anything. Do you think it's become a bit weak that I could basically bend my elbows for 24 hours in an opposite direction and get into the book?
Yeah, I think it has gotten a little silly. I think a lot of the world records that are in there are really more about being quirky and fun than something that's really kind of oftentimes difficult and challenging to do, which I think was the whole intent, right?
Well, absolutely, yeah. And so It's interesting to me because you went into something that was quite creative at a very early stage. Certainly before, I think podcasting, from my understanding, had a peak, a trough, and then a peak, and then we're riding like the second peak. And at the very beginning, the first name that came to my mind was Ricky Gervais. He was the first one that I seem to remember listening to his podcast. But of course, you were before him. You were before him in the pre-Ricky Gervais stage. Who the hell was who was listening? Who was listening in your days? Were you just blasting it out to an empty world, or were there people sitting in their basement in their underpants listening to you?
Well, I started in this back when really the emphasis was more around radio. So, the show that I did back in '99 was a radio show. It was on 15 broadcast radio stations in the U.S. It was on the XM Satellite Radio Network for 2 years. And I mean, for me, it was really simple. I just took an MP3 file, linked it off my website, and then when podcasting started, I just added the enclosure tag to my RSS feed, my blog feed. So I had built my own blog on my own website back then, and so really podcasting wasn't a very big thing for me back then. It was just one more thing that I was doing to distribute my show, because most of my listeners were coming from streaming platforms, actually, back in those days. And so podcasting wasn't really that big of a thing for me when it started. It just has grown into something more over the years that have gone by. And as people are shifting their audio consumption patterns over to more on demand, because back then it was more linear, which is more what the experience of radio is today. So it's just this gradual, slow shift in how people are consuming media is what podcasting is really all about, and why we're seeing it start to grow. And it's been steady growth. I know you mentioned that there was like ups and downs of podcasting, but if you look at the actual raw data, the raw data is very consistent growth. Over each year, it just gets a little bigger and a little bigger. I think over the last couple of years, it's grown a little faster, but if you look across the whole time frame of podcasting and its usage and its content creation, it's just been a steady growth. Some years it grows a little more than other years, but it's been steady.
It seems to me, though, Rob, that there is an explosion, certainly around me. Maybe it's just because I'm in that environment now. 3 years ago, when I started this, I used to say, oh yeah, I'm a podcaster, and people would say, what's that? And I'd go, oh, a podcast, and I'd have to explain it. It's getting less and less now. People seem to understand a bit more.
Yes.
But you can track it back, can't you? I grew up in the 70s. You're a young man. You probably grew up in the 80s. And I remember CB radio as being the first kind of exciting thing where people could send their words out into the world, and you tweak around and fortunately find somebody else that you could talk to and rubber duck it, and away you went. Does it sort of excite you now how easy it is to be able to do this, that literally anyone can create a business around a podcast if they are willing to be consistent, professional, and put their content out to the world? Or are you a bit blasé by it?
No, I think it's always been an opportunity for podcasting, in this new medium, because radio has been kind of like it's like an exclusive club, right? That you had to be invited into, and you had to pass all these arbitrary kind of tests for your radio broadcasting prowess. But now it's like anybody can do it. It's just a matter of talent, right? So we're in this era of content creation, right? The creative energy is what's driving this medium forward, and the creative abilities of millions of people or tens of thousands of people are being given the opportunity to express themselves and do that creative thing that radio is kind of held back. It was almost like they were playing a game of I don't know what the right word is here, but scarcity was the game. So you only had a couple of shows. There was a limited amount of time that radio station was available. So those program managers had to prioritize, right? Podcasting isn't about prioritizing. It's about blasting out everything and creating content in all genres and all topics. Whatever a person can come up with as an idea is prime for podcasting. Some will succeed, some will fail, but the cream rises to the top. And And it really doesn't matter that you're at the top. You can be in the middle or at the bottom and still have a great experience podcasting. And that's the power of podcasting, is that it's a democratized medium that is open to anyone.
I agree with you, Rob. I agree with you, and no one's listening to this show, but I want to be at the top. I want to be at the top, sir. I want to be looking down from the Everest, the podcasting Hall of Fame. I wouldn't want to be into the mix. Is that one of the things that people are missing out on? When they start a podcast, they're basically following suit from what other people are doing. So they're kind of getting the scraps instead of creating their own thing. We see the big ones like Serial. We see John Lee Dumas when he first came in and he was doing a 7-day-a-week podcast. And these were trendsetters. And, of course, trendsetters are easier to create their own path than following suit. But do you think a lot of people are just happy to have a podcast as a name, as a product, and don't want to get to the top? Because, Rob, I want to get to the top. I want to get to the top, mate.
Well, no, I think everybody aspires to get to the top, and I think many will. And there's
I don't think they do, though, Rob.
But it's okay to not be at the top too, and that's the thing. There's success at all levels in podcasting. It's all driven based on what your individual goals are. If your goals are to be at the top, it's in front of you. You can do it. It may be more challenging than an average podcaster can accomplish. If you're putting it on the scale of Serial had a staff of 8 or 9 people working on that podcast. So most podcasters don't have that kind of resource, don't have that kind of backing, don't have professional editors, don't have professional producers, don't have 6-month lead times to produce content. So you kind of have to be careful on how you're positioning yourself in comparison to another podcast, because it may not be a fair comparison.
No, it's not, and I take that point. When I started Join Up Darts, I actually thought to myself it was going to be a lot easier than it was, and I realised then that I was battling people that did have teams, and it almost killed me, Rob. It almost killed me.
It does, yeah.
And I aged badly overnight, but through that process, I kind of found systems that worked for me. So now it's only 3 days a month, which is perfect. But there's still, I think, people that just, they see it as a badge of honor now to have a podcast on their platform. They don't really, they're not driven to have the quality of audio, for example, that you have. You came through to me today, you sounded great, and I said to you instantly, I can tell that you have got it set up right. A lot of people come through to me and it sounds like they're talking through a dead armadillo. It's a muffled kind of stupid sound that they're making, and I think, why would you do that? Why would you effectively step on stage in your underpants? Why don't you put your best clothes on? Why don't you put your best performance? But I don't think people are really understanding what a podcast is. It's an ability to get their knowledge, their professionalism, their experience out to the world. And the world, they're fussy, I think. Certainly when it comes to audio, they're fussy, don't you think?
Yeah, I think that the bar has been raised. I think when podcasting started, there wasn't as high as a bar that exists today, because technology has improved and audio recording at high quality is much easier to do now than it was in the past. So you're exactly right. I'm not sure that a lot of people that do guesting on podcasts or produce podcasts are really all that technically savvy, and unfortunately, you do have to have some technical skills to produce a quality recording. Though it's easier to do it now than ever. I work for a company called Spreaker, and we offer tools that help you produce a quality audio program, without expensive, recording equipment. But it's still something that, if you're going to be involved in this medium, you need to respect the listener, and that's kind of who it's all about. It can't be painful for a listener to listen to you. So you want to have good audio.
No, I agree with you totally. Now, what I want to do, I want to just take it slightly away off of podcasting and into your own personal journey, how you found your way here, because so many of our listeners are looking for their own path into something that seems exciting and energizes them on a daily basis. Now, is your job, is it something that you love? Do you wake up every morning and jump out of bed and go, here I go again? Or is it now just a job to you?
I would think it's a little bit of both. After being involved in the podcast medium for over 14 years, it's certainly not a new thing for me.
Yeah.
Which tends to make it a little easier for me as opposed to others, because I've got such an experience base to pull from. So doing things in this medium are not that hard for me anymore. I think that they were difficult for me at the beginning, just like it would be for anyone else. So I kind of approach it more. I mean, my motivator every day is to help other people, and it's not so much about me producing quality content anymore. It's about helping other people to produce good audio quality and to reach their dreams and to reach their goals in doing a program or doing a podcast. So I've kind of have had to reposition myself, though I do 2 podcasts myself every week. One's a video show and one's a live audio show, but both of them are live programs. Those shows are all about helping others. They're all about sharing knowledge. They're all about helping people reach their goals, and that's what I wake up in the morning looking forward to doing every day, is like coming on your show and talking about this medium and helping people understand it at a deeper level that can hopefully translate into their success.
Oh, you're a man on a mission. You are a man on a mission.
Yeah,
I'm going to play some.
Totally.
I'm going to play some words now, and then we're going to sort of delve back into your own personal story. We play these generally on the show every day, so here we go again. Jim Carrey.
My father could have been a great comedian, but he didn't believe that was possible for him, and so he made a conservative choice. Instead, he got a safe job as an accountant, and when I was 12 years old, he was let go from that safe job, and our family had to do whatever we could to survive. I learned many great lessons from my father, not the least of which was that you can fail at what you don't want. So you might as well take a chance on doing what you love.
So you've kind of found your mission statement. You've moved into that. But everybody has a journey, and you went through the orange juice craze, and then you are here. Was it always a sort of interest in radio? When you was a small kid, did you lay on your bed late at night listening to radio, or has it been sort of stumbles and falls that have got you here?
Actually, not at all. I had really no interest in media creation at all. It was really, I mean, I'm more of a marketing guy, so I spent a lot of years in sales and in marketing. I have a degree from college in marketing and business. So my orientation has always been from the marketing perspective. It really, I was using media as a marketing tool, and that's really kind of what got me started in this. Is that I was looking at media as a marketing tool for a consulting business that I was involved in early on during the early or the mid part of the .com era around search engine marketing. So I was involved in that very, very early. And so for me, it's just always been about marketing. It's always been about one-to-one relationship building around sales. And that's what's taken me down this path.
And is a love of marketing that has really sort of helped you? Because we see it time and time again. People will create content, they will create a product, but then when it comes to the marketing, the product and the content just sits there, doesn't get out to the world. Have you sort of, looking back on it, have you done it the kind of right way? You found the bit at the beginning which has led into podcasting, or could you have gone either way on that? Could you have brought the marketing afterwards?
Well, I thought about the whole concept of content marketing very early, and I think back in the 90s, I thought about using content as an educational tool, as a way to build relationships with other people, and that's what pulled me into this medium, and that's really what got me started. I mean, it was more on radio back then. Of trying to build direct relationships with potential customers that I was trying to reach with, an opportunity around how to take their offline business and make it available in the search engines or online to reach more customers. So that was the message that I started out with, and why I got pulled into this medium was to share that opportunity with lots of other people, and then hopefully that would drive my business forward, and I would get more clients and customers coming to me, looking to me as an expert. So using content, and it's this concept of sharing first, giving first, and then you get, is a concept that really at a very fundamental level is how I operate at. So I give a lot to others in what I value as far as knowledge and experience, and then hopefully I get something back from that in a long-term relationship and a business kind of dealing in a business a relationship with those people that saw value in that.
So when you listen to those words from Jim Carrey that you might as well take a chance on doing something that you love, you probably wouldn't that wouldn't fall into the way that you've operated. You've just kind of gradually sort of meandered more than felt hugely passionate about something.
Well, I think that the concept of doing something that you love is certainly a big part of my experience, because I think I could have gone down the path of just, and I did this. I was a marketing director at a couple of different companies and things like that. I could have just gone down that path and just been just a marketing director or a marketing guy, and that's all I did. But I chose to go down the content side because I had this passion that took me down this kind of unique path. I'm one of the few guys really that's had a full-time career working on platforms, podcasting platforms, for 12, 13 years in this medium. When this medium started, it wasn't really that big. I mean, there wasn't that many jobs available working in this medium. Most people that earn money in this medium were selling advertising. Though I spent many years selling advertising on my radio show, I had that background, but that wasn't, I built my career on this medium for most of my work career.
And when you look back on everything, has there been huge wins that have catapulted you forward, or has it been like you were saying with podcasting, it's just a gradual sort of the data shows a slight incline?
Yeah, I think it's been steady. There has been leaps forward that have happened, and I think those have been fairly indicative of the various kind of positions that I've had in the medium, like when I started to work for Microsoft and I ran the Zune podcasting platform for 6 years. That was a big bump for me as far as kind of worldwide kind of name awareness. And then going to work for Podcast One, which has a very famous CEO who started Westwood One, which really was the inventor of syndicated radio. So I've had these opportunities that have come to my life that have kind of elevated me in various ways in perception, that have kind of moved my career forward. So
where we are now, we're at a place where podcasting certainly is taking control, and more people are getting on board. What would you say would be the first steps for somebody out there? They're listening to this, they're thinking, I'm going to start doing this. Is it better to have a business and then attach a podcast to it? Or is it better, as I did, to create the podcast first and then think, well, what do I do with it? And then sort of created a business afterwards. What do you think?
Well, I think you can do it either way. I think a lot of people out there have businesses already, and a podcast can be a valuable addition to their business. Not unlike what I did with my consulting business around search engine marketing, is to share your expertise and build your base of customers from that. And it's a resource for your customers to come in and learn more about a particular opportunity that they have in their own lives too. So you have this kind of this dual thing. And then, but if you don't have a business and you're working at a full-time job somewhere and you want to take your career in a different direction, I think find a passion that you have about something that you have in your life. Maybe you have a hobby. Maybe there's a dream that you've always wanted to do this and that, and dive all in, get all in on it. And maybe you create a podcast to start you down the path of making that become a reality in your life. And I think podcasting can help you get there. At least that's been my experience anyway, is that if you are consistent and you're professional and you do the right thing for other people and people notice, and you can push your dreams forward using this medium. And I think that's what makes it very powerful. And it has worked that way. I've seen it work that way for many, many people over the years.
Well, I think it's astonishing, I really do, because we see now online that there is a power towards video, there's a power towards webinars, but I see Join Up Dots, I see all the podcasts out there, even if they're selling something overtly or not, it's a trust building thing. People come through to me and they say, I've been listening to you for the last 6 months, before they even ever reach out to me or connect with me. Yeah. But they wouldn't do that unless they get a real flavour of what I'm about, and that I'm not going to rip them off or whatever because I'm sort of providing this content. I think that's what podcasting does over a consistent basis, over a period of time. You can't keep up a facade. It becomes you become honest on it. There's too much time to talk, and through that time your own opinions and your own voice comes out, and some people will resonate with that, and some people will think, oh, he's a complete idiot, I don't want to have anything to do with him. But that's what I think it's so powerful. It really builds your personal branding like nothing else. Yeah,
it certainly can do that, and there's a dark side to it too, is that it can also expose you as not being a very good person too. So I've seen that happen many times as well. So I think being authentic and real and being a good person on your podcasts, I think is generally a good thing to do, because it builds that trust, and that's the goal that you should have as a podcaster, is to be authentic and real, but friendly and drive value to that listener's lives, because they're taking time out of their important time as well to listen to you. So, it's a big responsibility, I think, to be a podcaster, because you're basically asking for people to give up some of their time and their valuable lives to listen to you. So whatever you can contribute to their lives, is important, and that's the value exchange that exists in this medium, that I think more people need to really fully embrace and fully understand. That's the value exchange. That's the difference between somebody that's got a very large audience and a show that doesn't have as large of an audience. But I also think the measure of your show is more about how engaged your listeners are in your program, not so much how big your audience is, because that audience could be fairly disconnected. It could come in and out of your program, but do you have a foundation of listeners that come back every week to listen to your show? And I think that's what you want to build on.
And that's the difficult thing, isn't it? It's to build that community. And I think it stems from radio, as in, I never, ever feel like connecting with a radio station. So when I turn the radio on, I listen to what they're saying, and I turn it off. And I get emails through more and more nowadays, but in the early days, I didn't get any at all, because people would just listen. And I do the same. I listen to podcasts, not very many, but I rarely had that desire to actually reach out and connect with them. And funnily enough, the ones I have done over the past, I was delighted, certainly in the early stages, that they did actually, communicate with me. It made me realise that they were real people and it wasn't a corporation, and I loved it, and it gave me a big burst of confidence. But the audience out there generally don't feel confident enough, I think, even if you ask them on a daily basis, to actually reach out.
Yeah. Yeah, they don't. I mean, it's the same thing that's been with talk radio for many years. As far as call-in talk radio, you're only going to get maybe 10% of your audience or less that are going to actually engage with you or call in, right, or engage at that level. It's just not going to happen that often because many people just like to listen. They're lurking out there. It's not a bad thing. It's just their personality, or they're busy, or there's a lot of reasons for that. But that doesn't mean that they're not getting value out of your program. And they may come up to you at some event that you go to and say, "I've been listening to your show for years. I never reached out, but I wanted to come over and say hi." And those people come out of the woodwork pretty regularly. I mean, I know that they're out there because you can see it in the download numbers. It's just, and you don't hear from everyone. So, but I also try really hard on all my programs to give people lots of ways to be able to reach out to me, because some people like to do it different ways. Some people like to send email. Some people like to post a comment on a website or on a show page or something like that. Other people like to call, so or send a message somehow. And I try and give people as much ways for them to engage and connect with me and find me. I've never been shy about sharing my phone number and my email address, because I feel very strongly that all of us, if you're a podcaster, you need to be found. You need to be able to be contacted. You need to be able to connect with people on a regular basis, because that builds that deeper connection with your community.
I will do the same. If anybody's out there, you will instantly get a response from me. If you are blonde with a winning smile and a love of 80s music, of course, you will get an instant response, and maybe a topless photo or two. I don't know what I'm going to send out, but the offer is always out there, guys, and I do love connecting with people, and it's not.
So you're going to send out a topless photo? Is that what you said?
I will do, sir. I will do. Would you like to be my first one? I will autograph it for you, Rob.
Sure. There you go. Go ahead.
Yeah, I won't go any more than that, Rob, because we've only just met. But if we meet at a conference or something, I might go a little bit further for you, sir. I might go a little bit further.
Ooh, okay.
Right. So when we look at podcasting again, no, actually, I'm going to ask you something because it interested me, and then I forgot about it, and it's back to me. You spoke about a kind of dark side of podcasting where it is very positive, but you've seen people kind of destroy themselves. Is there a kind of a dark side? Is there an underbelly of podcasting that I haven't discovered? Because I've looked at it and it's all sort of very positive and enthusiastic. Is there a kind of a black market of podcasting that you've got to find through a secret door in a dungeon somewhere and they're all sitting down there? How have you heard this stuff?
No, I don't think that there's really any quote unquote dark side of podcasting. I just think that it's there are individuals out there that just don't have personalities that match with the medium.
Right.
Just like what, to some degree, what's happened in commercial radio or public radio. Just certain individuals and personalities just don't connect well in this medium. It's just how it happens. Not everybody can have a popular podcast. I mean, it's a special talent. It's how you communicate in a way that builds friendships. There's personalities out there that just struggle to build friendships. And those folks are not going to be successful podcasters. It's just, that's the only dark belly that I've seen anyway. And those folks never really succeed anyway. So it's not really an issue really with the medium, because most of the shows that are active have people that are hosting those programs that have dynamic personalities and like people and like to connect and are friendly and adding value to people's lives. So it is overall, like you were saying, it's a very positive medium.
Yeah, I suppose you're right. I've never seen a podcast serial killers on fire or loners on fire.
No, they probably exist, though.
Do you think so? I'm going to start subscribing to see this dark underbelly that you're talking about. It's intriguing me now. It really is intriguing me. So
yeah, but you wouldn't want to listen to those programs anyway. So
There's a dark side to me, Rob. There's a dark side. I've already shown you my topless photos. I can go anywhere you want, mate. I can really sort of take it anywhere you want. So for somebody out there who is looking at starting a podcast, what would you say would be the 3 sort of big gains that they can get from it, and also the 3 things they've got to be aware of? There's 6 things ultimately from there, but what would you say would be the 3 positives that they would get from a podcast if they started doing it, first of all?
Well, I think they would, number one, they would, over time, be a better vocal presenter. I think is a skill that's always valued out there in your professional career. I think knowing how to use a microphone it's not one of those top 3, but I think those are important skills, just like what you were talking about earlier about a lot of people aren't using the tools to produce quality audio as much yet, but that seems to be getting better. I think that the other value is how it can really enhance your career, your work career. I think over time you will probably earn more income based on doing a podcast and building your expertise in your particular expertise area, and building a community around you, I think adds value to your life. I think that there's just generally more fulfillment that you get out of feeling like you're helping others. And I think most podcasters, have to have that approach, and how they think about creating the content and communicating with others is giving to others is always going to make you feel good about yourself.
And what about the sort of the pitfalls, the 3 big ones that, because it's not easy. I'm not going to say what I think, but I might do afterwards because it's my show and I can take control of the microphone. But for your point of view, what are those 3 big pitfalls that kind of knock wannabe podcasters off the track?
Well, I think I think one of the big things that happens to many that get involved in this medium is a phrase that's really pod fading. I don't know if you've heard of that term before.
Yes. Yeah.
Where you start a show and you basically, one of a few things happens. You either run out of things to talk about, or life gets in the way, or you realize that it's harder than you had anticipated and you just don't have time for it anymore. Those are the kind of pitfalls of getting started in this, because you could invest a lot of time and energy and in equipment and microphones, and realize that it's not a medium that you can sustain and produce regularly, because podcasting is a marathon run. I know that there's movement in the industry right now towards kind of seasons and short production time frames and things like that. Those are usually driven based on business reasons, and I think people get confused based on what they see with like Serial and these short seasons that they produce content. A lot of those season-produced podcasts are because they're highly produced, very expensive productions, and they have to limit it because they don't have the budget to sustain it. But most podcasters, it's a marathon run. I mean, you create episode after episode, just like yourself. You've made over 700 episodes. This is something that you need to do on a weekly basis, whatever. It needs to be something that you build over a long period of time. And that can be something that's overwhelming to some people. They don't understand the complexity of that, but they also need to design their program to be able to be something that can be easily produced every week. It needs to be streamlined. It needs to be efficient. Needs to be of quality, like what you're doing. But yet it's a challenge, and that may be too much for some people.
Takes me 19 seconds after a show to produce my show. 19 seconds.
I don't know. That's too much time. I don't know.
I know. I the only thing I can do quicker than that is make love. But that's not bad. That's not bad. 19 seconds, is it?
No, it's actually that's pretty impressive, I have to admit.
There we go. Round of applause. Let's have one of those. I felt like I needed to big myself up there a bit, Rob. I've been feeling down. I haven't had that applause. Now? Yeah, I haven't had the applause in my life enough, really. I don't know what's happening to me.
Keep pushing that button, and I think you'll feel better about yourself.
I am. I'm going to have it by the side of the bed tonight, and I'm going to give myself a round of applause whenever I feel like it. It's going to be perfect. Well, what I'm going to do now, I'm going to play the words of the late Steve Jobs, who created the whole theme of the show back in 2005. He stood up and said these words to a herd of Stanford University people, and let's hear him again. Steve Jobs.
Of course, it was impossible to connect the dots looking forward when I was in college. But it was very, very clear looking backwards 10 years later. Again, you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. So you have to trust that the dots will somehow connect in your future. You have to trust in something, your gut, destiny, life, karma, whatever. Because believing that the dots will connect down the road will give you the confidence to follow your heart, even when it leads you off the well-worn path. And that will make all the difference.
So when you look back on your life, you've already sort of mentioned a few positions that really shot things forward. Did you have a big dot that you think, yeah, that's really when everything sort of come together for me and led me on this path?
I don't know that there's been any big moments like that, but I think it's just the combination of being focused, and I think being consistently present in the direction that I was going, and then just working hard every single day. And I think luck comes to those that are consistent and work hard and think about others in what they're doing, but also stay very focused on driving value to everyone around you. And I think that's the most important thing for me anyway.
And did you have kids, Rob?
Yes, I did. I have a son and a daughter.
And do they look at you and understand what you do for a living, or is it sort of just madness to them?
Oh, it's total madness, definitely. No, they each have their own path, and they've chosen their particular path. I think I'm not exactly sure that they totally understand what my path was. Because it was kind of a path that was less taken, I think. So it wasn't really clear how I got here, just because I was doing things early on that were fairly unconventional. Getting involved in online audio like this is not a common career out there.
It certainly isn't. But I hope that all the kids out there look at this and know that you've got your phones, you've got your headsets, and, it's not hard. You can get your voice out there. You can create an audience, and whether it's on YouTube or in the podcasting field or whatever, it's a brilliant way of growing your experience and your confidence and your knowledge. And ultimately, if you become good enough at it, the world does turn in your direction. I'm a great believer, and I'll just say this to you, Rob. I don't know what you think about this, but I was having a sort of disagreement the other day where people say, oh, you've got to be on Facebook, you've got to be on Instagram, you've got to be on this, and you've got to be on that. And I said to them, what about just becoming so good at something that the world turns in your direction? That, is that a simplistic point of view? But I think that audiences naturally grow, and word of mouth is really, really powerful. But so many people are spreading themselves thinly without actually focusing 100% on the nuances of becoming as good as they possibly can in that environment. What do you think, sir?
Yeah, I think getting good at what you do is certainly important. I kind of struggle with that concept of getting good at something. I think that it's a difficult balance, because I'm not sure getting good at something is always the key. I think it's getting good at helping others, I think, is the key to your success. I think you have to have your own skill set in order to help others. So you have to help yourself before you can help others. It's just like, you have to like yourself before you can really like others too. So, that comes across as who you are. But being the best or whatever is kind of a subjective thing. I'm not sure that you have to be the best to be successful in life. I think what you just have to be is consistent and have values and have work ethic and drive value to people. And I think that's the key, no matter what career that you're working on. But you do have to have a certain base level of skills in order to be taken seriously, though.
Well said. Well said indeed. And I'm sure you're going to have some even more powerful words to say now, because this is the end of the show, and this is a part that we call a sermon on the mic, when we're going to send you back in time to have a one-on-one with your younger self. And if you could go back in time and speak to the young Rob, what age would you choose and what advice would you give? Well, we're going to find out, because I'm going to play the theme, and when it fades, you're up. This is the sermon on the mic.
Here we go with the best bit of the show, the sermon on the mic, the sermon on the mic.
Well, if I were to go back in time, back to when I was 9 years old, back in the 70s, I believe, I chose and was pushed into picking blueberries when I was growing up and making 10 cents a pound. I think that was a very scarring experience for me. So if I had to change something from my past, I would have not picked blueberries when I was 9 years old. I would have done something much more dignified.
Simple advice, but so powerful. I'm not going to pick them now. You put me off blueberries for the rest of my life. Rob, what's the number one best way that our audience can connect with you, sir?
I would say via email, rob@spreaker.com, and that's Spreaker. That's Spreaker with an R. And I also have a website, robgreenlee.com. You can go there too. I do 2 podcasts, the Spreaker live show, as well as new media show. So go check those out. Those are the best way. I'm also on Twitter @RobGreenlee, and that's with 2 E's.
We will have all the links on the show notes. Rob, thank you so much for spending time with us today, joining up those dots. And please come back again when you have more dots to join up, because I do believe that by joining up the dots and connecting our past is the best way to build our futures. Mr. Rob, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me, David.
Mr. Rob Greenlee. Blimey, he's been in podcasting for years and years and years, and he looks like a young baby. He looks youthful. Should have seen me a few months ago. But podcasting is where it is. It really is. And whether you want to create one first or afterwards or whatever, I build my whole income around podcasting, either with my training course, Podcasters Mastery, or through Join Up Darts. I don't think I would have been able to do it. I wouldn't have been able to grow a profile as quickly as I have, certainly globally, without being able to put my voice into a microphone and throw it out to the world. I think I would have been very localized with my ability to connect. So if you want to grow something very quickly and connect with the right kind of people, I think podcasting is the way forward. Thank you so much, as always, for listening to this show. Thank you so much for being with us in such vast numbers. And until next time, we'll see you again. Cheers. See ya. Bye-bye.
David doesn't want you to become a faded version of the brilliant self you were once to become. So he's put together an amazing guide for you called the 8 Pieces of Advice That Every Successful Entrepreneur Practices, including the 2 that changed his life. Head over to joinupdots.com to download this amazing guide for free, and we'll see you tomorrow on Join Up Dots.